Give yourself to love. Wow. I'm going to start out with what is love? And I don't mean the definition. What is the actual experience? What is the touch? And I want to call it a touch because with Amy was, I'm still in that teary mode. Um, the touch comes and it comes as quick as a tear. And it's not a tear of pain, it's a tear of joy. It's that tear that melts our heart. And we've all experienced it. And if you can imagine, you can have a bad day and you walk into a room and someone hands you a kitten and you feel the kitten on your lap. And as bad as your day has been, you start to pet the kitten and something melts. Something melts. That's the touch. And that's the power of love. And we don't know how it works, but it does. We don't need to figure it out. And when we're in that place, when we're available to it, it comes unbidden. I was coming out of the restroom and Amy was playing Give Yourself to Love, and it hit. Just whoa. And so the touch can come, I'm with Susan. That's probably where I feel it the most. We'll be at the dinner table. And we rarely ever say, I love you, honey. I just want to gag when I hear that because it so often means I need you, and be the way I want you to be, and I'll continue to be good to you. And which is not love. That's contractual. That's contractual. It's not relational. And love is relational. Love puts you first rather than me first. And if you've had children, you know that you can't help it, and it's, yeah. You get up in the middle of the night, you do things that, just you don't really want to do, and you do it because there's something about the touch that pulls you to do it. So Susan and I will be at the table and we'll be chatting away, and I'll look over and there'll be something that just sort of moves, and it moves from the heart. And I'll say, did you feel that? And she'll say, yes. And you know what I'm talking about. And when we do say, I'll be feeling that and I'll say, you're a really good person. And that can trigger it too, because she knows what that means. That means that I don't need you. I'm not attached to you, but I really care about you and I really feel good when I'm in your presence. Wow. So, those are definitions of love. Love is, how do you describe the taste of water? Come on now. Go for it. You can't. How do you describe love other than it's a touch? It brings well-being. It brings peace. It has this power, but it makes no demands. You can't use it and wield it like a sword. It is so gentle and subtle that we miss it. And it also comes in different languages. Some people express it in different ways. Some express it through cooking. Some express it through kind gestures. Some express it through poetry, through all kinds of different ways. But it is that touch of the heart that is so creative and that wants to give and express. If you've ever been to a masseuse, my father was a massage teacher. And he talked about when your hands are hot, that you're really giving love. And you can tell. And so I was a victim to many of his students, and I could tell very quickly who was working it and who was loving it, because I can feel the difference. So there was this story I heard about this lady who was diagnosed with cancer. It was breast cancer, and she needed to go in for a biopsy, but she needed an MRI first, terrified of going in the machine. The noise, the claustrophobia, and she had to be in there for about 45 minutes. And she had a panic button and earplugs, and in she went. And her whole body was tense and getting tenser. And I know you can feel that. And it was getting too much, to the point where she was just ready to push the panic button. And this hand reached into the machine, and the hand went right in the middle between her shoulder blades and started to rub. And immediately, something within her just relaxed. She could feel the love. Something just went, oh. It was the touch. If you were in that situation and someone gave you that touch, like the mother's touch to a child that is hurt, you feel that. And you can also feel the mother that says, oh, honey, that's going to be okay. Oh, you're not hurt that bad. Or, oh, honey, come here. Oh, let me hug you. Oh. It's not the genuine. And you feel the difference. Love tends to be on the quiet side. It's not demonstrative and over the top. It tends to be, it's that touch. It's that quiet touch. There's the story of the Good Samaritan. And for those that don't know the story, a man was walking from Jerusalem to Jericho, and he was robbed and beaten, and his clothes were stolen. Everything was taken away from him. His dignity, and he was left in the dirt by the side of the road. And who should walk by? First was the priest of the time, and looked down, no help coming from him. And next came a Levite, who was part of the elite Jewish people. He looked down, not going to help him. And then a Samaritan came by. And the interesting part of the story is the Samaritans were not well liked by the Jews. Either they were considered unclean, they were considered pagans, although they were also considered to be the most generous. They were the true holders of the Christ consciousness. And this was prior to Jesus's time, but that was that energetic of love. So the Samaritan comes by, sees the man, and doesn't hesitate. Goes right to him, picks him up, starts to help him, puts his coat around him, gets him up on the donkey, and brings him to the inn, where he pays the innkeeper to take care of this man and to sort of nurse him back to health. And he said, I'll be back in a couple days to check in. When I come back, if you need more money for his expenses, I'd be more than happy to pay for it. And leaves. It's a beautiful story about who you wouldn't expect to be so generous. That the clergy, the high people, were cold to the needs of this man. But someone considered lowly or untouchable was in touch. It's an interesting story. Now, from the person who received this, can you imagine what it must have been like if you were in their shoes? his shoes, being naked and hurt and robbed and hopeless, helpless. And for someone to come along, that's happened when I was, in a very serious accident. And I was alone in the dark, and somebody came along. This angel came along. And I could tell by the way she just walked up to me and what she didn't say that I was safe. And I can imagine the man in the dirt and the Samaritan coming up. And what he did was such an act and kindness of love, a demonstration of love. And so, Martin Luther King uses the story again and again to talk about community. And what he says is, if I do stop, what will happen to me? That's the first one. If I do stop, what will happen to me? The second phrase is, if I don't stop, what will happen to him? And that's the key point. Where are we coming from? Is it about me? Well, yeah. And can it also be about him or them? And I think we grow in love and compassion when we go beyond our own special, important, puffed egos, and we start to see the bigger picture. We start to see that there are other people that are in need also, and that we can help and that we can make a difference in their lives. In fact, we can transform their lives, like music teachers do. So that goes back to the two aspects. Is our love contractual? Most marriages are. This is why they end in divorce. You're not meeting my needs? Forget it. I'm out of here. Or is it relational? Relational meaning it's a much bigger picture. It's how am I in relationship to not only to Jeff, but to my environment, to the world, to the animals. How am I in relationship to all of it? And we talk about being in relationship with the beloved. The beloved is before us. In the person laying in the dirt, in the person who is suffering in the MRI, the person who needs help. How open are we to simply being present to those needs also? And is there something we can do? Now, for everybody, that's not going to work. But there are times when you're asked, there are times when you're invited to step in. And the question is, do you stop yourself? Because for most of us, when there's a real need, we step forward. It's part of our nature. And if it wasn't part of our nature, we wouldn't have survived as a species. We do help each other. Animals help each other. So the question is, when there is a need out there, do we step in or do we stop it? And we learn to stop it through experience, through bad experiences. But can we, in a sense, really stop and notice, I am stopping. Do I really need to stop? What is this? And that's where the breakthrough comes. Because when you go beyond and you actually engage in loving kindness, it not only transforms the other, but it transforms us. And we learn a new habit. We learn a new pattern. We learn a new way of survival, that the survival strategies that I had were very small by comparison to going beyond that and to taking that chance. and to stepping forward. I'm going to finish with this last story. Stephen Larry Gray, that's Adyashante's real name. And he tells a story about his grandpa. And he says his grandpa was probably the most enlightened person he has ever met. He had kindness, wisdom, and just an all around great guy. And he raised Stephen's father, who was a real handful. And he had 3 friends that were real handfuls, and they ran in this tribe or this little group, and they would steal, they would do drugs, they were just nasty. And Stephen talked about how bad they were. And Grandpa never bought into their badness. His door was always opened. He always fed them. He took them on vacations, family vacations. He treated them all like family. And and Stephen came in one day, he was about 5 years old, into Grandpa's house and noticed there was a bullet hole in the television. Grandpa, what happened to the TV? Oh, one of your father's friends had an argument with the person on the television and shot the TV. So you can get that there's a lot of things to forgive and to move on with. I mean, there was a lot of, they used to break into the house at night while they were sleeping, and they'd steal money, they'd steal food, they'd steal all kinds of stuff. They were just, anyhow, time moves forward. They had a steady diet of love from Grandpa. And over time, they all turned around and became really responsible, loving adults. And when Grandpa died, the 4 people, Stephen's dad and his 3 friends, were the most grieving of the bunch because they were the most uplifted by Grandpa. And from that point on, every year they would come together in the apartment above the garage, and they would drink beer and tell stories about Grandpa and how without him, without his love, they would not have survived. They would definitely be in jail or worse. So, how does that relate to community? Community is individuals. And if you want to uplift a community, you work individual, individual, individual. And in that process, the community is uplifted. And it takes time. And it takes the willingness to not stop, to continue moving forward, giving yourself to love. So, what is the power of love? The power not only feels good, it uplifts us, but it uplifts the other. It's a twofer. One for you, one for me. And it works. And you know it works. So if you get anything from the talk today, it's the difference between being in contract with someone. I give you, you give me, or it's I simply give, no string. I give it out of my overflow. I don't need it because it's a flow. It's constantly flowing. There's an endless well of this within me. When it's discovered, it's pretty awesome. As you give, more comes. And Marilyn, in her musing, will talk the very, very end of that. If you want more love in your life, just love. Simple as that. And with that, let's take that into prayer. As we take a breath together, bringing that breath down into the heart and actually feeling the heart that loves, the heart that loves us so much that it tirelessly beats continuously since before you were born. I don't know of a greater love than that. And so from that heart, we take a message into our world that this organ that pumps and moves and gives us life, can we do the favor by honoring our own heart? And can we take that honoring to honor all of the hearts that we are connected to in the world and the beyond? That this is this very life, this one life, and that we recognize that we're all so connected in this one life. So can we celebrate together in this one life by honoring the heart within each of us? You'll get a chance in the Namaste greeting to greet each other as the one heart. For this, I am so grateful. I bless it, I let it be, and so it is.